Alright, let's talk about a new function we can call on our string objects. To date, we typically see something like this when we want to adjust or insert items into a string statement like this. So I want to have a position here, a position here, and a position here, all taking in strings, and then I can pass outside of the string here, I can pass in this tuple containing the different values, A, B, C. What I want to do is just introduce you to a new method that we can use called .format, which we call on a string here, and we use these curly braces to identify the placeholder for the items we're going to insert. So in this first example, it's the same as our %s example here, only in this case we're doing these curly braces and we are giving an index value for the actual argument index in our tuple. So, well, we can think of it as a tuple, but they're just arguments for the format function. So if we have position 0, that would be A, 1 would be B, and 2 would be C. The second example, which I'll show you all when we print all this, but let's go through them first. The second example shows that you don't need the actual index values here. It will automatically put them in the order that they're in the strings for the placeholders, the same as the order that they are in as arguments in the function call. So the first one will be A, second one will be B, third one will be C, same as the first example here. Now the second example shows how we can mix match the position values, so 2, 1, 0 will be C, B, A. And then the next example here shows you a little, it's actually a pretty neat little unpacking argument sequence where we have A, B, C, but they're all in one string. And if we put this little asterisk inside, we can say that this is supposed to be a list, similar to the way we've done it up here. And then we can call in the index value the same as we did above. And this will also print C, B, A. And the last example shows that you can reuse index positions within your string to call the same value more than once. And that's extremely handy. That's something that was very difficult to do up here, or impossible to do, I'm not sure. But it's just once you had a position, you had to call a value for that position. Unless we use some naming and keyword argument stuff up here, but this is just a much cleaner and simpler solution. So before we run it, you might ask, well, why would I stop using this and switch over to this? Well, it doesn't really matter. You could use both. They're both quite good. This is a newer way of doing it, the .format, or the format function we're going to run on string, and it's also the way that Python 3 and above will do it as a default. So, what is it faster? Well, there's a debate on that. Some say it is, some say it isn't, and I'm guessing it just sort of depends on the situation, on whether it's faster or not. I would recommend you give it a try if you like the way it works. Then you can use it. If you like the way we did it before with the %s or %d or whatever, you can maintain doing it that way. It doesn't really matter. But it's always good to learn the new techniques, and just in case they make it mandatory or as a default that you have to use format, at least you'll know how it works. So let's just run these initial examples to see how that works. So I'll save it and run it. So what it does here, the first one was our %s, just said ABC, and that's the exact same output as the format function, which was ABC. The third one was the same format function but without the index calls, just ordering the placeholders the same as the format arguments, ABC. The last one, remember, was CBA, which it worked out there. Then CBA down here, where we took a string and converted it to a list, and CBA. And then we did formatting two strings, giving the second string first, then the first string, and then the second string again. So CAD, Abra, CAD. Sorry, should be, 0, 1, 0. So Abra, CAD, Abra. So Abra, CAD, Abra, all in one. Let's look at 3 more examples that I've put down here that really show the power of this format function. The first one here is similar to what we've done before, only our placeholders now have keywords associated with them. And within my format function, I can actually assign keyword arguments for those placeholders. So I have latitude and longitude. When I run that, it'll simply just fill it into the appropriate position. The next thing here is giving a little bit more flexibility to the function. It's where I assign a variable over here called chord, and I equal that or assign that the value of this dictionary with, again, keyword arguments here, latitude and longitude, both of the same values, and then print it out the same as I did before, only this time I'm passing in this dictionary with the 2 asterisks, this dictionary called chord. And then the last example is, again, I'm using a variable called chord and giving it a tuple of the values 3 and 5. I'm actually going to show how you can pass in this tuple into the format function and then select which values out of the tuple you're going to use using the index. So let's take a look at all 3 of these when we go ahead and print it. Save, print. So the top ones here are the same as we did before. When we get down to coordinates, you'll see that I grabbed 37.29 north, negative 150.81 west for the appropriate keyword arguments in there, because of what we fed into the format. Coordinates here, the exact same output, only we're using a variable, and a variable represents a dictionary of keyword value pairs. And then the last example was showing how we could pass it a tuple of data. In this case, it's a two value tuple here, 2-position tuple, and that passes through, and then we can assign an actual position index within the tuple into our little format here. Okay, so those are the 3 examples, and I think that's a good starting point. I do recommend you go ahead and look at the format examples on the Python documentation to learn a little bit more. And we will be having a second video going into some more custom details of this function, which I think is pretty interesting.